long time ago before Duty's Called and Medal is Honored. Technically, Medal of Honor had already been released, though let's be clear, Wolfie got there first, at least on the PC. There existed Return to Castle Wolfenstein, a game I've already covered in this show, I think. Did I? I probably have. A fantastic game where you, as BJ Blazkowicz, steer your way through World War II, Nazis, zombies, night zombies, the occasional wizard or two, and all sorts of abominations onto the laws of man and science and nature and gods and whatever you want them to be. It had a multiplayer mode, one that people enjoyed, and for which a lot of people made maps. Some of the people that made maps for it were part of a studio called Splash Damage. They made a very popular map for Return to Castle Wolfenstein that was based on Operation Market Garden. Id Software and Activision were so impressed by it that they decided, you know what, we could probably work together and make an expansion for Return to Castle Wolfenstein. One that would have a campaign, that would have a multiplayer, and that would be released around 2 years after Return to Castle Wolfenstein itself. Things didn't really work out all that well. So much so that instead of being an expansion for Wolfie, it became its own game. And then the single player aspect got axed, and instead of being released as a commercial product, the unthinkable happened. I know not what the circumstances for the release of Wolfenstein Enemy Territory were, but I'm glad they happened, because we got a quality, and I mean high quality for the time, multiplayer FPS. A free one. Absolutely free. Currently, it's so free that it's basically Libre. It's open source, you can modify it. Everything about it is kind of out there. There's a re-implementation of the game called ET Legacy that aims to improve upon it by making it work a bit better on modern systems. And it's compatible with existing servers and existing clients. I think you can basically play matches on the same server with the two different client versions. And the original one as well, with a bit of fiddling, is still very much playable. And there are servers for it still up. They're filled with bots because nobody plays them on a weekday nowadays, but they're still there. Wolfenstein Enemy Territory is honestly a name that has not come up for me in about 8 years for the most part. But back before that, it was big, and I mean it was huge. I wouldn't say it was Counter-Strike level of huge, but it was huge in its own way. It was one of the most popular multiplayer FPS games on the PC for many years. Around 5 or 7 at least. I was still playing it in 2010. There were people on there, on the servers, playing them daily. Custom servers, custom settings. There's a bajillion maps for it. And what made it so good? Well, for one, it was free, and it had a high level of quality for being a free game. It could run on basically everything because, you know, it was based on Wolfenstein's engine, and that could run on a lot of stuff in 2003 at least and onwards. The concept of the game is quite simple. Two teams, Axis and Allies, they fight on the battlefields of World War II in Europe and in Northern Africa for victory. But it's not team deathmatch, it wasn't even capture the flag, it wasn't even, I don't know, something like Little Baby Man, push cart. Or if you want something more modern, cheers love, the cavalry's here, push that payload, I am British, That's my horrible impression of Tracer. It was Unreal Tournament's Assault Mode, where you had actual objectives to accomplish during the match. It could get a bit confusing at first if you didn't take the time to read what you had to do and look at the map where the objectives were and what classes you needed to accomplish the objectives. Usually any class would do, but most of them required an engineer. And once you figured that out, you were in for the time of your life. As Axis, you generally defended. Generally. And as Allies, you would quite often attack. You would have very big maps that would stretch the horizon, upon which you would have to navigate very actually kind of complicated spaces. It wasn't just over the land rush and shoot everything that moves. There were passages sideways, there were underground tunnels, there were bunkers, there were buildings, there were castles, there were fortifications, there was a lot of stuff there. And again, it wasn't just about shooting the other people. Yeah, that's how you progressed mostly, but it was also about capturing the okay, so there was capture the flag in the sense that you had to go to a flag, stand there, and when your flag went up, that was a new spawn point for you that the enemy could actually take back if they wanted to and tried and you weren't defending it. Then you could go around escorting things that were vital to completing the objective, like a nuke that you had to push and it was on a cart or truck on which you would have to put the payload on, then escort it and fix it if it got broken, and bomb any sort of barricade that anybody built in its way, usually the Germans. You could build MG nests in predefined areas, you could build bridges, you'd have to escort a tank and make sure that nobody blew it up. You'd have to fire mortars at the enemy to keep them away from where you are, bombarding an area to make sure that no one got through, but someone eventually did and shot you in the face, maybe someone disguised as your allies. There were 5 classes if my memory doesn't deceive me. There was a soldier, the basic grunt, the guy who could carry bigger guns. You could carry, not a venom gun, there were no sci-fi elements in, or fantasy elements in Wolfenstein Enemy Territory. There was no venom gun, but he would have a bar, you know, the machine gun, the big one, with like 150 bullets or 200 bullets that would let you move only very slowly and had not great accuracy, but it would mow down everything in its path. Also, this was the age before aim down sights was a thing, so what you saw was a tiny enemy in the distance and your bullets spraying towards them, though headshots still counted a lot. Then you had the medic, whose job was to look at you where you were crying out, "Medic!" and lying on the ground and reaching with your hand and then ignore you and walk away. That's what that's what bad medics did. You then had the field ops, who would have the ability to give other people ammunition, which was useful because you did not have a lot of it, and there were places that you could get more ammo. You could get them from dead enemies, I think that was dependent on the mods installed on the server, or you could get it from resupply caches that will also heal you because there are health packs there. The medic could also heal you, by the way. They rarely did. You had the most important character, which was the engineer, who could build stuff in predefined areas, not everywhere they wanted to. There was actually a mod where everybody could build things. You could build barricades and towers and stuff. And I never actually got to play with more than one other person, so it wasn't all that great. But in the default game, the engineer was pivotal. Without one, you could not really attack. You could probably defend without one, not as well, because you could also build not just barricades and MG nests and the occasional tower or the bridge. You also could build a command center which would speed up the rate at which you could respawn. There were several modes in the game, one of them being last man standing, in which you could not respawn after you died, so it was fighting to the last man, a war of attrition, not a war of let's respawn and hope that we coordinate ourselves better this time so we can actually kill the enemy and capture the objective before they come back. And then you had a funnier class, one that wasn't in Return to Castle Wolfenstein, because all these ones basically were. You had the Special Ops. You know how Team Fortress 2 had that event with Spy versus Sniper? Well, here the Special Ops was both. Depending on what weapon you chose, you could play as a sniper, but you would always have the ability of a spy. If you killed someone, you could go up to them and steal their uniform and then look like the enemy and infiltrate them. And because there was such a thing as friendly fire, people were not necessarily inclined to shoot you in the face the moment they saw you coming from the front lines back, because, you know, shooting an ally in the face is considered a faux pas. I used to love playing with that guy back when I knew how to play that, though. Don't pay any mind to the videos on the background where I'm getting pawned by bots. Really smart bots, I gotta say. They really know how to camp. Like where they stand on shelves with a machine gun and just mow everybody down before you can even see them. Because you wouldn't think that a bot would be that smart, but they are. They absolutely are. As a special ops, you could also throw toxic grenades. They wouldn't kill instantly, but they would be very good for making choke points. Get it? Because the gas would choke you and eventually kill you. We've also set up mines with, I believe, the engineer or the field ops. What I'm saying is that you had a lot of choices in terms of your equipment, in terms of what you could do with your class and what you could do with all the classes as a player. Not only that, but the classes actually leveled up. It wasn't a persistent thing, so you couldn't be insta-clobbered by people that have been playing it for years and years and years, unless they've been playing it for years and years and years on the same server and you were just joining and you were playing for the first time and yeah, they were better than you, that's why they won. But you could level up your classes. The exact number of levels sort of, I wouldn't say it's a loss of time, but I've never seen the default number of levels because all the servers I had played on usually added something of their own. And leveling up, you could gain extra type of ammunitions, you could gain, I believe, armor, you could gain basically more features for your class, unlock it to its full potential. But it wouldn't take you years and years and years. It took like maybe 100 kills, which you could realistically achieve on a single server in a single game if it had enough players in a very generous time duration. Because usually the matches ended on time. Man, rarely, and I mean very rarely end because somebody achieved the objective. There were a lot of them. There were a lot of objectives to accomplish, and you had to be coordinated for them. It was a lot easier to defend them. It was a lot easier to be entrenched to mine the area around the objective than it was to coordinate an attack from multiple directions to not get mowed down. But the game did have fire teams to sort of help with that. You could start your own fire team and you will all spawn together and you could communicate better and plan stuff. Some people did that, clans did that, pubs, players that just joined for fun, no. But still, even without all the planning, the game was fun. It was enjoyable. I played it, well, I guess for about 3 to 4 years on a regular basis. It was such an enjoyable multiplayer experience. But then I sort of switched to Team Fortress 2 because Team Fortress 2 had the same kind of magic to it, but there were more classes. The maps didn't drag on quite as much, unless I don't count 2 Fort. To be honest, I love me a long, lazy game of 2 Fort. Oh, the joy in killing the same spy 50 times in the source as an engineer. Oh, the absolute beauty of it. And I have to thank Wolfenstein Enemy Territory for making me aware of the joy of such a game. Yeah, no, Team Fortress was a thing before it. I never played the first Team Fortress. I didn't even play, well, I did play Team Fortress Classic, but I had no internet, so I was just running around the map by myself. It wasn't playing it, it was de-registering it, if you will. Enemy Territory, as I said, I think I said, only shipped out about 6 maps, but they were huge, and it would take a long time to actually finish the objectives on them. Mostly because, unless you actually read what you were supposed to do, you had no idea what was happening. It wasn't a game that would hold your hand most of the time. It was more of a game that would let you have fun your own way. Or let you get lost on the map and not know where you have to go and why and where. But that's how games were. They were a bit different back then. And you can absolutely still play it today. Wolfenstein Enemy Territory is free. ET Legacy is also free. So go and enjoy them. If you're wondering, well, if this was such a success, why did they not make a sequel to it? Why didn't they capitalize on success? Why did they totally Winamp this? To Winamp something is a term invented by me to describe something that is insanely popular, that everybody has, everybody uses, but that thing is owned by a company that has no idea what to do with it, an incompetent company. So that's why we now have iTunes instead of the Winamp store or something. Well, Splash Damage did make a sequel. Not in the exact sense. I mean, how do you make a sequel to a multiplayer? Well, yeah, you make Team Fortress 2. They made Enemy Territory Quake Wars. It was the same kind of take on Quake, well, Quake 4 at least, that Wolfenstein Enemy Territory was on Return to Castle Wolfenstein. I remember playing it when it came out, and I thought it was okay. It had some new things. You could actually drive vehicles now. You even had flying things like in Unreal Tournament 2004. But it didn't really go to many places, did it? I think one of the reasons was because of the mega texture technology making maps where it was a bit difficult. I know it did have custom maps, people still made them, but I don't think it got the same kind of love as the original did, mostly because I think you had to pay for this one. And now it is kind of dead. Technically, I haven't found people playing Wolfenstein Enemy Territory on a weekly either, just bots, and I think that's kind of the same situation with this one as well, probably even less bots. But by the time it came out, the world was a bit different. We had Call of Duties now, we had Unreal Tournament 2004 but did really good vehicle combat and first person shooting in the same kind of environment with objectives and stuff. It had Onslaught mode, which was neat, still had Assault mode, which was great. It had Team Fortress 2 for the more limited scope, multi-class type of affair. There wasn't really that much room for Enemy Territory, especially a pay-to-play one. I'll probably never do a show about Quake Wars because I never did really play much of it outside of the beta, so you can consider this all that I have to say about it. Goodbye.